Hey YouTube, Roper here, back with a Scareclaw Dogmatika deck profile for you guys. This is something I cooked up recently, a nice kind of mid-range deck that sets up not a ton of crazy interruption, but consistently can put up a few interruptions a turn and can just totally steal games out of nowhere with try-hard OTKing like crazy. But yeah, it's super cool. Scareclaws I've been wanting to mess around with for a while because they're just such an interesting play style. And then I figured Dogmatika can be kind of an easy splash in here to give it a little more oomph. But yeah, so that's the thoughts on the deck. Let's hop into it. So we'll start out with our Scareclaws. We have 3 Reichart, 3 Acro, 3 Astra, and 3 Balone. Figured we should probably just go all in with names, because, you know, every Scareclaw is just a 1-card Tryhard, so I figured no reason not to max out on these. Tryhard is kind of a house to try to deal with, so figured maxing out on this, and then you've got plenty of extenders if you draw multiples to play through some interruptions, like if they negate your light heart or negate your right heart, just you've got just an extra extender to deal with that. So yeah, that's pretty simple. I guess if you don't know all 3 of these, give your Link monster bonus effects, piercing, multiple attacks, and extra attack points. And then Reichart searches your spell trap, and if you have enough defense positions, at least 3, it will also draw you a card, which is super nice sometimes if you just open a bunch of Scareclaws and then you can trigger Reichart to draw, and then you draw the Dogmatika part of the deck, which is always feels super nice. But then after that, we do have 3 Fenrirs and 1 Scarecash. This is super nice to have both with Fenrir as an endboard piece and searching you an extender, or even a starter sometimes if need be. Yeah, because then we've got Fenrir for its banish, and it is another defense position monster to help trigger your Reichart more often. And then, yeah, either it can search the Scarecash if you need it, or it can search another Fenrir to follow up if you think that your opponent might try to blow you out. Then you've got another Fenrir to help rebuild. But yeah, super good endboard piece and searches you an extender. And Scarecash is also super nice that even with Tryhard on board, it can still get attacks through because it can attack in defense position. So yeah, super nice little engine. And then the last of the monsters are of course, the 3 Dogmatika Maximus. I figured I wanted a supplementary engine in the deck here. I thought, what better than the Maximus, because Maximus just gets you to your Shadal endboard, which is pretty difficult to out, especially when all your opponent's stuff is going to defense mode with your Tryhard. And this is super easy to access. We've got 3 Maximus, and later in the deck 3 Nadir Servant, so 6 copies of this, plus a possible draw off Reichart if we don't draw the Dogmatikas. Because if we don't draw any of our Dogmatikas, it's probably because we drew a bunch of Scareclaws, so there's a good chance that we can have enough to trigger Reichart and then draw into our Dogmatika, which is super nice. But yeah, and Maximus also gets your Shadal endboard, and also gets you a draw off Garura, so you get to draw into more hand traps. So that's just super, super nice. Yeah, thought it was a good supplementary engine for the deck. Then for spells, I'm playing 2 Reichphobia and 2 Arrival. Reichphobia is kind of self-explanatory at 2 because you don't want just 1, but you do want to not draw it all the time because Lightheart can just search it. But if you do happen to draw it in your opening hand, worst case scenario, it's insurance against if they hand trap your Lightheart, or it can be follow up for next turn. And then Arrival, kind of the same thing, because you usually just search it off of your Reichart. But it is actually nice if you draw the Arrival, because then you can search your Twin Saw with your Reichart. But I didn't quite have room for 3, but I think 2 is just fine, especially with the hard ones per turn. But yeah, it's super nice, just, again, an extender that if you happen to draw, helps you play through a bunch of stuff. It's super, super consistent to make your Link 3 because there's so much insurance in here. Like, all of the Scareclaw cards are just extenders on extenders on extenders. So if you happen to get any of your effects negated, you just get to extend through whatever. So that is those. And then the other spell is our Nadir Servant. Again, super nice. This is better to draw than our Maximus because this gets us extra draws. Because we get to draw off of Nadir Servant. I'll just show we're playing our Garura for a draw, but then we also have Farragut, which can draw and put 1 back on the bottom. So we get to see 2 cards extra deep with our Nadir Servant versus 1 extra card with our Dogmatika Maximus. But drawing Maximus is still very good. It's just Nadir Servant is just so crazy. But yeah, so that's the last of the spells, and then the 2 traps are Twin Saw and Schism. Both of these searchable endboard pieces. They work super well together too, so if you can put them both on the same board, that's super nice, because Schism just gets you into your window, and then Twin Saw can really protect your window from any cards that your opponent's trying to use against you. Plus, Twin Saw just on its own is a super good endboard piece. Like, Tribute to Scareclaw, pop 2 cards your opponent controls, and then from grave you can banish it to just say links can't activate this turn, which is a wild floodgate effect that I feel like goes underappreciated a lot. Like, just locking your opponent out of links is super crazy sometimes. But yeah, that's the last of the engine. For non-engine, I am playing 3 Nib, 3 Mourner, 3 Veiler, and 3 Imperm. I figured this is pretty good for non-engine. The Nib for like a high impact card to just totally blow out, and then the 3 Monster Negate hand traps. I definitely wanted to squeeze 12 in here, because then our draws off our Dogmatikas and our Reichart can get us into extra non-engine, because then even our 2 or 3 interruption end board can still be backed up by plenty of hand traps. So that's why I wanted to at least get 12 in here. We've got 12 of this plus our Fenrir as kind of pseudo non-engine, but also gets to be an extender in there. But yeah, that's kind of the goal of the deck, is to draw like at least 1 Scareclaw, at least 1 Dogmatika, and then a bunch of non-engine. Because you just get to make your Link 3 with your 1 Scareclaw, do your Dogmatika stuff to get your Winda, and then back it up with a bunch of hand traps, which is, I feel like, a very consistent way to just totally block off all your opponent's stuff. With Tryhard and Winda working so well together, your opponent's not going to be able to do much, and what little they can do, you can just stop with these. So that's what I went with for that. We'll go into the extra deck. Not a whole lot for links. It's just 3 Lightheart, 3 Tryhard for our actual link climbing. The rest is just Dogmatika targets, because you really don't need anything other than this for the Scareclaw part of the deck, because Tryhard is just that crazy that if you just go into Tryhard and then as long as it gets around to your turn, Tryhard can just OTK like crazy because of all the bonus effects of your Scareclaws to give it massive boosts and extra attacks and piercing. Plus, it can reborn a Scareclaw and search a Scareclaw, so it just gets 2 of those bonus effects for free once it hits the board. But literally 1 Tryhard plus your 3 non-Reichart Scareclaws makes a 3900 Tryhard attacking 3 times with piercing, which last I checked is pretty easy to OTK with. And that's not difficult to do. Literally, if you open 2 Scareclaw monsters, that's Tryhard with 3 Scareclaws, which is super crazy and super easy to OTK, which is why I'm not super worried about the grind game with this deck, because if you go first, set up a board, stop your opponent from doing stuff, and it gets back to you, you most often will be OTKing your opponent with Tryhard, because, again, there's so much consistency in the deck with 3 of each Scareclaw, plus 2 Field Spell, 2 Reborn, that it's just so easy to get into your Tryhard, and once you're in it, it just gets to Reborn and search and set up its OTK on its own. So that's the only real Scareclaw engine link summoning. But then after that, it's all Dogmatika stuff. The most important being our App Cologne, and I am playing double Winda just because I had the room, because I figure it may come up that you use the App Cologne, summon a Winda, and then your opponent outs it, but not the Schism, thinking, oh, they only play 1 Winda, and then you just make a second Winda, which is super funny sometimes. But I figured if I've got room, might as well play a second in case that comes up, because a lot of opponents wouldn't suspect having a second Winda, so they can just leave the Schism there and just worry about the Winda. So yeah, that's that. And then our 2 draws are Garura and our Farragut. Garura is our usual Nadir Servant target because it's 15, and so is our Maximus. So we just get to draw off Garura. And then Baron Blossom is, if it's sent to grave, draw a card, put one on the bottom of the deck, which we can put back any like doubles we might have. Like if we have like 2 Nibiru or 2 Mourner, we might want to put one back and get just a different draw. But otherwise, super good for obviously getting more advantage, getting more hand traps, but Farragut also for hand fixing if you happen to draw something you don't want to, or like if you say we draw like 2 Dogmatika cards, we can just put one of them back because we only need 1 in the opener. So that's nice. Then we've got 1 Titaniclad to search up follow-up Dogmatika stuff. That's just kind of one that I've got there. Again, App Cologne, Garura, Baron Blossom are usually the only Tri-Brigade, or the only Dogmatika targets you really need in the deck. But I've got, the rest are just kind of situational. Like Titanic Lead can search follow-up Dogmatika cards, which is helpful when breaking boards occasionally. Like with our Entis and our Funny Time card, Blazing Bombardment Beast. Because this card, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a monster your opponent controls with 1900 or less attack, destroy it, and inflict damage equal to its original attack. So, worst case scenario, if we are going second into time, this is a way to burn for time in main phase. If we don't have time to go through all of our Scareclaw stuff and get into an OTK, but like their opponent passes and we've got like a minute, we can get enough into our Dogmatika stuff and send this to potentially pop an opponent's monster and burn for game, which is, again, kind of silly, but it is a niche thing that I figured could come up. And again, there's a lot of room with the Dogmatikas. I'm sure there's a lot of better targets I could be playing, but these three are the only ones that really have been coming up. Because, again, you pretty much do your first turn setup, and then after that, you just OTK with Tryhard. So most of these don't really come up, but I figured pop one and pop one for burn do sometimes. And because those are really the only ones that come up, I'm playing the 1 Omega just because that's another target and it can just recycle your other targets. So then you don't have to worry about other niche stuff because you can just recycle these. That's pretty much it for the Dogmatika stuff. Again, Apkalon, Garura, Farragut, those are the important ones. And then having the Winda up there. The rest is kind of flexible, whatever you feel like playing. Yeah, so let's hop into the side deck quick, just to show it off. We've got 3 Droll for obviously any search heavy decks, just totally stop them in their tracks. 3 Bell for graveyard stuff. For back row, we have 3 Cosmic and a Feather Duster because we are not... There's not a ton of back row removal in here. There's like Entis, but other than that, not a whole lot. So I figured 4 back row removal would be probably a safe bet. And then, for going second, because Tryhard is so good at OTKing, we just need to get our opponent's stuff off the board. We have 1 Change of Heart, 1 Snatch Steal, and 3 Regeki. Because, honestly, going second, if we can just bait some negates with these, or at best get these to resolve, and just remove our opponent's board completely, Tryhard can OTK through bodies. You just need to be able to get to it. So these, just being able to get rid of certain problem cards on the board or bait negates is, I think, super beneficial. And it is a very strange side deck, but I think with the ability of going second with this deck, it is super nice to just have some extra cards in there that just kind of invalidate certain end board pieces. Like, your opponent sets up a bunch of monster negates and then you just Change of Heart. Like, super nice, because then not only are you stealing a monster negate, so you don't have to deal with that, but you can then monster negate another of their negates, which is super, super beneficial, even just to get into your Tryhard. Because once you get to Tryhard, you're kind of there. It's super, super good. But yeah, that's the deck. super cool deck. Really kind of simple going first plan into a super hard OTK. It's a really interesting deck. It's been a lot of fun playing around with it. I've been wanting to play with the Scareclaws for a while, and I figured I'd play around with it and show it off to you guys. But yeah, that should be it for me. Watch out for a combo tutorial next week. Yeah, this is Rogued here, signing out.